What is up, everybody? This is JP representing jpfitnesspro.com. Yes, I am rocking that Funk Volume shirt and hat. Rest in peace to them. I know they broke up. Today's video is going to be about rest periods. I'm just going to jump right into it. I know rest periods may seem like a small thing to touch up on, but it can affect how much gains you make in the long run. I do see a lot of people mess this up. They either do it way too short or way too long, either due to talking or something like that. But I'm gonna go into what happens if you go to the extremes. What happens if you do too long of a rest period? If you do too long of a rest period, let's just say longer than 5 minutes. Let's just say you tend to just not track rest periods and you walk around or you talk too much with people. There's two major things that happen is you waste a lot of time. You're in the gym for way too long. Your hour workout can now be an hour and a half. Your 2-hour workout can now be 2.5 hours, or however long you're supposed to be in the gym for. Now you may be saying, well, I don't really care, I like being in the gym. So that could be a counter to that point. And if you are short on time, it's probably why you shouldn't be having too long rest periods. Oh, and one thing to note is I recommend everybody use a timer, because people are usually pretty bad at gauging time. So use a timer to track your rest periods, whether that be on your phone or with a stopwatch or something. So definitely use a timer. The second thing wrong with having too long of a rest period is you start to see the negative effects of cooling down. There is a reason why you warm up. The reason why you do a warm up to begin with is 1, injury prevention, and 2, to increase performance. You have faster nerve transmission when you're more warmed up. Your muscle has increased pliability. You can go to a greater range of motion. You can take advantage of the things like stretch shortening cycle during like compound movements like squats. It's not as good, or you can't use it to its full benefits when you're cooled down. So if you take 10 to 15 minute rest periods because you're talking to someone, you start to cool down by then. So if you don't want to waste your warm-ups, then you need to not take too long. Well, what happens if you take too short of a rest period? This seems to be, for people who do track rest periods, this seems to be the more common problem. And it's the reason why people do that is because they think they're going to make more gains, and I'll explain why you don't. But when you have too short of a rest period, you decrease the amount of reps, or you decrease the amount of weight you can do in subsequent sets. Let's just say you take a bench press, and let's just say you're working with 225. Your first set, let's just say you get 10 reps. If you take a 1 minute rest period, let's just say even if you could get another 10 reps, I guarantee you, if you would have took a 2 minute rest period, you could have got an extra 1 or 2 reps in. Or you could have started with 235 to begin with. You could have got 235 for 10, and then you could have waited 2 minutes and then got 235 for 10 again. You could do this on yourself. The shorter the rest periods you have, to an extent, the less weight you're going to be able to move, or the less reps you're going to be able to do. If you take a bench press, 225, and the same example, and you take a 30-second rest period, you're not going to be able to do that many reps after 30 seconds. So again, when you have decreased reps or decreased weight, that equals less volume over time, which means less gains over time. If you've heard me talk about that on this channel before. Also too, and that's just for making gains when it comes to gaining muscle. Now, when it comes to strength, it doesn't affect that a lot too. So when you have too short of rest periods, you have increased fatigue, which means 1, increased injury risk, and also decreased performance. Anybody who's done a squat to even remotely close to failure, or deadlifts remotely close to failure, if you're taking 30-second rest periods or 1 minute rest periods in between big compound movements like that, you're going to be fatigued when you start the next set. There's no argument about it. There's going to be some level of fatigue, and it's going to be pretty high if you're taking 30 seconds or 1 minute rest periods. So I do not recommend taking that short of a rest period. So again, you're going to have increased fatigue, and you have to remember, strength is a skill. It is a skill. If you cannot perform the repetitions with flawless technique for as good as the technique you can do, the numbers that you can put up are going to suffer. And remember, strength is all about numbers. If you're not hitting the numbers that you want to hit because of you're fatigued, then again, your strength is going to suffer. And then on top of that, you have the increased injury risk always lurking around the corner right there. So again, if you take a set of squats, even to 5 to 7 RPE, you know, 3 to 5 reps within failure, if you stop around there, and then you wait 1 minute or wait 30 seconds. I don't even suggest you do this. I'm just saying because it could be dangerous. But if you did do that, or if you've done it in the past, 30 seconds to 1 minute, and then you do your next set, you're gonna be fatigued. The quality of your reps are gonna be lower, and you're not gonna get as many reps, so it's less volume over time, shittier technique, and then increased injury risk. Now, if you waited 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something like that, then you're gonna have better looking reps. Your risk of injury is not gonna be as high, and then you're gonna be able to put up more weight and then more reps, one or the other, you know? So those are the kind of pros and cons. I mean, pros of going too long or too short. Now you might be saying, well, what do I do? Okay, so if you're for heavier weight, lower repetitions, or strength training, strength work, because strength is a skill, I'm going to give you a simple guideline. Now this may differ a little bit depending on the person, but I'm just going to give you a general guideline for this. So if you're doing 6 reps or less, which is what I would consider strength training, and you're going between like a 5 to 7 RPE or less than a 7 RPE or less, which means you're stopping the set within 3 reps of failure. And there are times that you're going to do that. You're not going to go to failure all the time. I've talked about that in a different video. I would recommend that your rest periods be approximately 3 minutes between sets. So again, this is for strength exercises, and typically you're not going to be doing strength like isolation movements. And if you are, I still recommend doing that. Again, this is where it may differ. You know, if you're doing like heavy bicep curls, you can wait 2.5 minutes. But on average, if you're not getting within 3 reps to failure and you're training 6 reps or less, I recommend waiting 3-minute rest periods for heavy movements like that. Now, if you're doing an intensification block, or you have a period where you're getting a little bit closer to failure, or you're testing your 1 rep max or something, or you're testing a 3 rep max, or you're just doing 3 reps, something like that, I recommend waiting approximately 4 to 5 minutes between sets. It may sound excessive, but the thing is, you're working with really heavy weight. You don't want to shorten the rest period, and the set that you start, you're gonna be really fatigued. And the last thing you want is to be fatigued during a set where you want to be precise. You're focused on precision. You want a really good quality looking rep is what you want to do when you're working with heavyweight. You want your technique to be impeccable. Because stop looking at strength as something that you can just muscle through. Start looking at strength as shooting a bow and arrow. That's a perfect way to think about it. If I were to have you do a sprint around a track as fast as you could and shoot a bow and arrow, you're not going to be able to hold steady. But if I had you fresh, ready, pull back a bow and arrow, you're going to be very accurate and precise. Think of strength like that. So 4 to 5 minutes if you're getting closer to failure and you're training 6 reps or less. Okay, now for hypertrophy or gaining muscle, one thing to note is I know that hypertrophy is just a stimulus from working out. There is no rep range for a hypertrophy that targets gaining muscle versus strength. There isn't. So it's like what I mean is that like you can gain muscle in these heavy rep ranges. I'm not saying that you can't gain muscle here and these are the rep ranges to gain muscle. The reason why I say hypertrophy rep ranges is because typically heavy weight, if you used heavier weight and lower repetitions only to gain muscle, which you can do, but if you did it to only gain muscle, it's going to be hard to accumulate as much volume as you need to make optimal gains due to the increased fatigue you have from training at this rep range and at this rep range only. There was a study done by Brad Schoenfield and colleagues that compared the powerlifting type workout, which is heavier weight, lower repetitions, versus the bodybuilder type workout, which is 8 to 12 repetitions, shorter rest periods. They both made the same, when volume was equated, they both made the same gains in muscle mass, but due to the principal specificity, the people doing the powerlifting type work got stronger. But there was one caveat. The group that did the powerlifting type work was extremely fatigued at the end of the study. They really didn't want to do anymore. They were beat, they were tired, really fatigued. The group that was doing the 8 to 12 bodybuilder type rep ranges and workout didn't feel fatigued at all. They said I could have done a lot more. They didn't let them do a lot more because the volume had to be equated. Basically, they're controlling volume to see which style was better, and for gaining muscle there wasn't. But in essence, because they could have done a lot more, they could have easily gotten more volume. So That's what I mean by hypertrophy, is that it's better to accumulate volume over time training 7 reps or higher, in my opinion. Now, I think you should use a wide variety of rep ranges for hypertrophy, which I've said in other videos. So for hypertrophy training, some of your work should be strength training. So when you're doing some of that work, I would recommend following these guidelines. But when you're training over 7 reps, these are the rest periods I recommend doing. If it's a total body compound movement, like total body, and yes, you can have a compound movement that's not total body. For example, a pull-up is a compound movement, but it's not total body. Yes, technically there are all muscle groups working, but the major muscle groups that are working are not total body. So for total body compound movements, standing overhead barbell press, squats, deadlifts, if you're training 7 RPE or less, 2 to 3 minute rest periods. Now, if you're training closer to failure, like you have a block where you're training closer to failure, 3 to 4 minute rest periods for total body compound movements. And remember, these are for all training 7 reps and higher. Now, for regular compound movements that aren't total body, and in my opinion, what falls into this category is bench press, pull-ups, dips, leg press, things like that. They have a major muscle group, they're compound, but they're not, like, think of leg press, your upper body's not really working, a pull-up, your lower body's not really working that much. For 7 RPE or less, approximately 2 minute rest period is good. You don't really need more than that. Now, you can go slightly higher depending on you. I go slightly higher on pull-ups for me, but 2 minutes is a general guideline. Now, if you're training closer to failure, I recommend 3 minute rest periods. You need that little bit of extra time to be able to recover. For isolation movements, lateral raises, biceps, triceps, tricep work, calf raises. If you're not training to failure, 90 seconds is more than enough. You don't need to sit there and waste time on smaller muscle groups and single joint exercises like that. Training closer to failure, 2 to 3 minute rest periods are pretty good. Again, these are the general guidelines for rest periods. Please use a timer to track your rest periods. A lot of people don't. Trust me, when you start using timers, you're gonna start. Sometimes you might be on. Sometimes I'll look at the timer and I'll go to stop the timer and boom, perfect timing for me. Sometimes I'm like not thinking about it and I'm thinking about something and bam, the timer hits and I'm just like, shit, that was a fast rest period. That went by quick. But again, timer doesn't lie. You know, humans, we're not really good at gauging time like that. But if you guys have any questions, comments, please post them down below. Like this video, share it with a friend. Hopefully this will help you to adjust your rest periods a little bit. If you guys have any recommendations for future videos, please post them in the comments below. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.